what he did to Joey Ramone. I mean, he fucking spent 20 years throwing emotional rocks at Joey Ramone. It's like, I stole your girlfriend, now fuck you for what? What did Joey do? Got his girlfriend stolen and was sad, you know? I mean, these dudes are in a band together. Joey's writing a song called The KKK Took My Baby Away about Johnny. Johnny doesn't give a fuck. It's a good song. Let's put it out. There's a commitment to the band on the level where you're willing to be sort of mocked in your own band and say, fuck, I don't care, let's do it, you know?
All right, so at number 7, the worst Ramone is Marky Ramone, number 7.
Like I said this in other interviews, it's easy to do this, but it's harder to do this.
We immediately both knew. I didn't even have to ask 3D. He didn't even have to ask me. So you want to go first? Go ahead.
So like we both, there's, obviously there's strong points with Marky. He great drummer. He holds down what he does. But when it comes to the terms of greatest Ramones from worst to last, he's the least effective in the sense that he just repeats kind of what Tommy created. And he never really did anything that stands out as like, oh, that's what Marky did. Other than just playing faster. And even in Marky's, after the death of the Ramones, he just was Marky. There's nothing special about him to me.
Now, I will say about his post-Ramones activities, though, 3D, I don't know if you've heard it, but I know I've talked about it. Marky was part of Marky Ramone and the Intruders. Now, he was, even though his fucking name was in it, he was the least important member because he wasn't writing lyrics, and the lyrics were real good, and he wasn't singing, and the vocals were real good, but they put out one record that's real fucking good, and that's the best thing Marky ever did, but in my opinion, obviously.
Right, yeah.
But as a Ramone, here's why I also put him in the last, is because number 1, he's not the originator, that's Tommy. Number 2, he's not the best drummer they ever had, that's Richie. And number 3, I don't like his fucking attitude. And he just seems like a dickhead. And he got lucky, he got in the Ramones, and he's way too fucking cocky about it. And that's why if he ever wants to be in the Jasons, we're going to say fuck no, but Richie might get in. We'll see.
Ooh. So Marky, some things in his defense, he played on that Richard Hell and the Voidoids classic album, Blank Generation. He's probably the only Ramone who is on an important album that is not a Ramones album.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, some of the negative parts about Marky are like his attention grabbing. He'll join the Misfits. He'll put out a pasta sauce. He'll tell the whole world about Johnny's cancer without permission. Just anything to get in the limelight.
Yeah. Let's also say this too, because we talked about the Misfits before. Not only Marky was in the worst fucking version of the Misfits ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was in the absolute worst formulation of that band, man. So there's another black label on his society. Yeah. I have a lot of these Ramones VHS tapes, and there's one that Marky really filmed a bunch of. He was like a documentarian on one of their tours, which was cool. But in that same VHS, he starts talking about oh, let me show you what all these heavy metal drummers do, then I can do just as well. And he plays something that's it's some fucking Buddy Rich drum thing that has nothing to do with heavy metal. And I'm like, Marky, you're out of touch, man. You don't got to prove how good you are.
Oh, are you talking about whenever he was trying to disprove blast beats?
Yeah, stuff like that. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And, being heavy metal fans, we're like, yeah, Marky, you couldn't fucking hang with Cryptopsy for 2 seconds. Your fucking wig would fly off and you'd be done.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. So at number 6, we got Richie Ramone.
And you got to remember, there was a lot of money in T-shirts made. When it came to T-shirt money, I wasn't a Ramone. And this is after 5 years, I felt I was due. I wasn't asking for the world. I felt I should get a little of that T-shirt money. What's the big deal?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richie Ramone's fucking awesome, man.
That's a strong 6.
Yeah, very strong 6. That's definitely, you got to look at who he's competing against.
Yeah.
We had the pleasure of playing with Richie, and there's a lot of mixed, a lot of people will sit there and talk about how big of a dick he was, but to us, he was very nice.
He was a weirdo, though. He was a weirdo.
He's a strange character, but...
he was nice weirdo.
He was
How
nice.
Was he weird? What did he do?
We walked in the door, we're standing there putting up our merch booth, and he walks in, and he just looks over at us, and he goes, this place gives me a weird vibe. I don't like it. And he walks away.
Yeah, it was...
And we were like... We had I remember me and you, 3D, we went, yo, is Richie a fucking dick? And then later on we talked to him, we're like, no, he wasn't a dick. But at first we thought, oh no, he's going to be an asshole. Yeah. But he was all right. He was cool. His band was cool.
He did not like that he was playing music in a restaurant that served food.
I didn't like that either, but fuck, we did what we had to do.
You know, V and I, at least, you know, we're both fans of his solo music, but in terms of this list, the reason why we love Richie, man, is just because the albums he's on is so fucking good.
Our favorites, really.
Yeah. You know, Animal Boy, he was on Too Tough to Die, right?
Yeah.
Fucking Too Tough to Die, Animal Boy, Halfway to Sanity, like.
And by the way, you talk about us liking the weird records. My favorite record's Animal Boy. His favorite record's Halfway to Sanity.
Those are weird.
Those are the best ones, man. Those are the best Ramones records.
Okay, so we got Richie. He's on these kind of, I mean, some really classic 80s albums. 3 80s albums that the Weirdos and the Jasons really like.
He's a badass because he's the only person to tell the Ramones to fuck off when they wouldn't pay him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got to talk about that. So he quit because he didn't get in on the merch money, and that's where the real cash is. What do you guys think of it?
I see both sides of it, but it's just like that kind of thing with Richie. It comes down to you're the new guy, you know, your name's only on a couple shirts, but it's like you're the new guy, you had a contract and you knew what your contract was. I see you want more money because your name's on the t-shirt, but at the same time, like, you were only there for a short period of time. You didn't quite have a stance where you deserved to be paid as much money as the other members.
Yo, I would be pumped in life, though, if I owned a shirt, a Ramones crest logo with a Richie and also, like, Joey, Johnny, Dee Dee. Wouldn't that be fucking cool? But to some degree, I sympathize with Richie Ramone, but I think he wasn't a fan. And that's the deal. I don't think he went into it going like, oh, my God, I have the opportunity to play for my favorite band. He was like, no, man, this is my job. I value myself as a fucking musician. Pay me or don't pay me, fuck off. And then I'll go get a business suit and I'll do an interview. Fuck you. That's what he said. That's how he did it. Now he's back. He gave his business suit up. He's wearing a leather jacket. He's got a weird accent. I don't know. It's good. I like it. Boom.
Cool. Moving on. So at number 5, you guys got Tommy.
I think the Kids Are Losing Their Mind, I think we all came up with. It was changed from another line. But the rest of the song I wrote. So let's read Bob.
This was hard.
I put Tommy here just because, you know, he's one of the founders, but he quit so early, but still did such a great job in, like, you know, helping behind the scenes after he quit. He just, you know, felt live shows just weren't for him or something.
I think he had a lot of anxiety issues and stuff. Yeah.
And again, you know, it's not a number out of disrespect. It's just like he wasn't there very long. And the band was able to continue without him and still pretty much sound the same. But like V said, you know, he is, without Tommy back there on the drums doing the 16ths and all that, you know, the Ramones would have not sounded the way that they do.
Yeah, and he was, you know, if you go to the, you know, way down to the nuts and bolts of it, he was the guy that said, you guys should start a band, and then they couldn't find a drummer and he came in. So he lit the fuse, and I always go back to what they say in hip-hop. 3D, got to respect the architects, and he created the drumming style for the Ramones. You know, it's the drumming style that we force every drummer that plays with us to learn today.
Yeah.
You know, and he also looked the best in a belly shirt. Let's be honest.
We've gone through the 3 worst Ramones. They're all drummers. I know the comment section's going to get mad. So why do you hate drummers?
You know what? I don't know. You know,
is it because you're a bass player? Is there insecurity there, and you have to make sure all the drummers are below the bass players in this list?
You know what? That's true. That is true. Because, you know, we get locked in that same kind of rhythm section thing. You know, when everyone's like, you know, everyone makes fun of the bass player and the drummer, and so I just gotta, you know, don't lock me in with that crowd. You know, like, you know, bass players, you know, we get laid. It's a myth.
If there's one thing I know, and I've known working with 3D for as long as I have, is he is incapable of fading into the background. I heard Chuck D once say that Flava Flav, when he walks into a room, this is a compliment, 3D. He says Flava Flav sucks all the fame out of that room, because when Flava Flav comes in, he's like, it's fucking Flava time, fuck everybody else. And that's 3D, man. I mean, like.
So back to Tommy. So, I mean, some just random facts about him. He produced a lot of the greatest Ramones albums, as well as Tim by The Replacements and Neurotica by Red Cross. He's the only Ramones drummer to not play on a bad album, I was going to say, except I'm talking to you guys, so it'll be a weird opinion. Moving on, number 4, we got CJ Ramone.
No, what started the problem was that they didn't say the to each. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I didn't say this stuff.
Yeah, I love CJ, man. Like, the songs he wrote for the band were great, even though Creating
Family's balls.
is just psychotherapy. But I like that song. I like the songs that he wrote. Mondo Bizarro is a good record. His work afterwards is great. Plus his stage presence I felt was awesome. You know, he had the long hair. He played his bass very, very low. And even Joey just talks about how great it was to add him to the band because he brought some youth back to it.
Yeah.
You know, gave them some life. Like, even though, you know, it did kind of cause a little bit of a split, you know, because after that it became Marky and Johnny versus Joey and CJ. But, like, was that really something new? Like, that, I'm sure that was probably there the whole time, you know, because, you know, Johnny had issues with Dee Dee and Joey had issues with Johnny.
Joey had issues with Marky, too. It was like a fucking minefield. I don't know how they made it, man.
Well, and then you could also go back to what you said earlier about who were you talking about? Marky not being a fan of the band, but then joining the band and getting a job.
Yeah,
like CJ was, you know, ecstatic.
Oh, he was
excited, stoked to be part of this band.
Yeah,
he went to jail, right? Like he was a military deserter because he just assumed he was just going to the tryouts as a fan, basically.
Yeah,
he had to spend a month in military jail before joining the band.
Worked out in the end.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, you know, because the Ramones were pretty tight-lipped about all their drama on the outside, you know, and then can you imagine what he thought he was going into, and then he joins and he sees the dynamics of the band, you know, and it's like not one person inside seems to be in good mental health other than him, and now he has to navigate these waters, like, and there's probably shit that CJ will take to his grave that we'll never hear that's probably some crazy shit, you know, like it must have been awesome and heartbreaking all at the same time.
Yeah, he's like the one sane guy, nice guy, easy to get along with.
Yeah, and you know, respectable, like post Ramones work for sure.
And one to this day, you know, you shoot him a message, he'll reply. It might take a while, but there's one day, you know, I was just looking for a new sound, and I was like, "Hey, what head do you use?" Mm-hmm. And like a couple days go by or whatever, but he was like, "Hey, you know, Ampeg 1000 or whatever the fuck."
Yeah.
But yeah, real nice guy. Types in all caps, just like Merle Allen.
Yeah. Ain't got time to figure out what goes high and low and the capitalizations.
Okay, cool. So we're at the final three, the Holy Trinity. Everyone knows who the top three Ramones are, but it's just what order. And we're going by 3D's list. So at number 3, Johnny Ramone.
All my friends that are here tonight, my wife Linda, and Ramones fans who made this all worthwhile. God bless President Bush and God bless America.
And now V strongly disagrees with that. But I went with Johnny. My thing with Johnny is like he's the stance. You know, he invented the, you know, you could venture to say the look of, you know, our style of punk rock. You know, like
he was the driving force for the visuals and the attitude, the aggression.
Yeah, you know, like he's, you know, he got that, you know, tough guy look. He loves Yoo-Hoo.
Listen though, but so all the reasons that 3D, you know, was basically saying why he belongs in the Trinity. Again, like throw out any Ramones core band name today, they stand like Johnny. They play like Johnny. They dress like Johnny. Their imagery is USA all the way. Kill a Commie for Mommy. That's all Johnny stuff. And, you know, so really, I mean, I would venture to say, 3D, if Johnny hadn't been part of the Ramones, I think they would have been more of a pop band because, you know, certainly Joey's sensibility was like Motown, poppy stuff, and Dee Dee. So, you know, as far as the tough guy image, and, you know, probably the thing that we rip off the most really is the tough guy image.
So Johnny's like the rule maker. He all downstrokes. You have to wear the leather jacket. You can't get a haircut unless I tell you what it's going to be. He's like necessary evil.
Yeah, certainly. Johnny pushed, we want to go on tour, we got to do this, you know, we got to do that. And like, I think, yeah, you're right. I think he held it together because the more I hear about Joey Ramone, and we know Dee Dee was fucked up all the time, but the more I hear about Joey Ramone, the more I realize that his, you know, OCD and his mental illness was almost debilitating, like to the point where it was like hours and hours and hours to convince him to go out of his house. And, you know, this is just fucking, the band's full of tragedy, man. It's crazy. sad, crazy thing. And while we're on the thing with Johnny, the saddest thing I ever saw in my whole fucking life, man, in End of the Century, when they're interviewing Johnny about the death of Joey Ramone, and he says, he goes, yeah, it affected me. And then he sits there for a little bit and he goes, I don't know why, maybe it's weakness. And it's just so sad to see somebody so emotionally handicapped, somebody who isn't even able to access that basic human empathy because he lived his gimmick, like toughness and never show weakness. He was living that up until his death, to the point where he didn't even realize why he was sad about this guy that he had been in a band with for fucking, all these years. So Johnny's a tragic character, man. He's a victim of his own hardline stance. But I mean, that's what made Johnny fucking cool, The vibe that someone puts out, like if you read Johnny Ramone's book, I swear to God, man, you want to start a band, buy Johnny Ramone's book, and that is the blueprint for how to start a band. Never show weakness, never break character in front of people. Just he gives a very honest assessment of their records. This one wasn't that good, that one wasn't that good. He doesn't rate any of them lower than like a B. I
mean, he might be the craziest one in here. Like that. I mean, it's a pack of jokers, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. And but think about the psychoanalytic implications of "I love you so much, I want to hurt you."
Did you make up that word?
Yeah, sure. And look what he did to Joey Ramone. I mean, he fucking spent 20 years throwing emotional rocks at Joey Ramone. It's like, I stole your girlfriend, now fuck you for what? What did Joey do? Got his girlfriend stolen and was sad, I mean, these dudes are in a band together. Joey's writing a song called The KKK Took My Baby Away about Johnny. Johnny doesn't give a fuck. It's a good song. Let's put it out. There's a commitment to the band on the level where you're willing to be sort of mocked in your own band and say, fuck, I don't care, let's do it,
So at number 2, you have Dee Dee Ramone.
We play so loud and all the amps couldn't take it, but now we got these amps that they work.
Yeah, so I put Dee Dee, and this goes back to, what we was talking about me earlier, connecting the personality and stuff like that. I've always loved Dee Dee, like in his interviews, he's just such a airhead, really, but like just a simpleton, and but through that somehow he was able to write these amazing songs, and like even, I mean, like, look at, Poison Heart, like that song was written out of desperation.
Dee Dee has like a zealous, full-on approach that he not only played bass that way, he fucking lived that way. Like, 3D's right. For him to be up there, Poison Heart might be my favorite Ramones song, probably yours, yeah?
It's a great song.
It's great. And I sent Dee Dee Ramone an email about how much Poison Heart impacted my songwriting once, and he did message me back. And he then died like 3 weeks later, and it was real sad. But I was like, it was cool that Dee Dee Ramone, and that was when his book had, was out or whatever, and I was also inquiring about that. But he sent me a big long email about the song, forgot to tell me where I could buy or purchase his book. So that also said something to me about, like, he's more interested in talking about that stuff than making money.
Well, and we can also talk about, like, how we said, without Tommy, there wouldn't be the Ramones. Without Johnny, there wouldn't be the Ramones. Yeah, we lost Tommy, and eventually Dee Dee quit, but Tommy was still involved in producing, and Dee Dee was still writing songs for him. But where I'm getting at is, like, Dee Dee did his infamous rap album, where even some of the songs on that album became Ramones songs because they were just, I mean, they still weren't even rap songs, like they weren't even hip hop songs. It was just like punk rock songs on a hip hop album. But at the same time, without all the songs that he wrote on those albums of his time in the band, like if you only had Joey songs, like we've talked about, how far would have they gone without Dee Dee, having that split up or writing the songs, like
they wouldn't have had nearly as many good songs.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, and even like personality wise, like him being crazy in the physical sense maybe distracted Johnny from, hating Joey for his political stance.
He was, crushed under the confines of Johnny Ramone's mandate, but I'm super glad that Johnny Ramone didn't let Dee Dee wear fucking fur coats in the Ramones, because Dee Dee didn't have the brain for like the structure and the image. It would have looked like a high school band where everybody was dressed different. But
and then he was in Gigi Allen's band too.
I saw an interview and they're like, he didn't understand. He didn't even know the name of the band. He's like, oh, is that what they're called? Oh,
yeah. Whenever they talk about Murder Junkies, he was like, oh, is that what the name of the band was?
I thought it was the G.G. Allin Band.
Yeah, but also that also shows you, like, because you hear these stories about Dee Dee, you know, wanting to stab Johnny, putting his dead girlfriend in the bathtub and just kind of ignoring the fact that she's dead, and then, you know, surprised when she comes back to life, and, like, you know, being on the street corner. You hear all these, like, awful stories about Dee Dee from his own mouth, and then, like, but then he quit G.G. Allin's band because they were drinking and Gigi threw a beer bottle at a hooker, and it's like, so there is, like, some innocence and, like, that childlike mentality there of, like, oh, I've done all this bad stuff, but, like, you're gonna throw something at a woman, you know?
Yeah.
So Dee Dee is kind of like you're saying, the prolific songwriter in the band, penning many of their greatest songs. He's kind of like an idiot genius at it. He's not really smart. He's not, like, I don't know. He doesn't think things through, but accidentally just writes these classic songs. Tommy once said that Dee Dee thought he was just writing normal songs. He didn't understand that, like, this is really weird. He's kind of like everything that Johnny doesn't have. I guess all three of them are just kind of like the void in the other.
That's really a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you guys read his book? It's pretty, it's hard to tell. It's kind of like the Joker movie. You don't know what's real and what's not because it's Dee Dee. Yeah. And he's got that one story where he's like, he calls his drug dealer and he calls 911 at the same time.
And man, that you know, what an analogy for somebody struggling like that, you know, calling the cops and calling the drug dealer, whoever gets here first, I'm going that way. I mean,
and that's how psychotherapy gets written. He gets, like, trapped and taken to a mental institution. Time's a ticking. We gotta move on. So at number 1, drum roll, the greatest Ramone is Joey Ramone.
Okay, girlie, the boys will take a look at him and get back to you tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, we're going to be in town one more day, and if we like him, we'll come and pay you, Mr. McGloob, a visit.
Of course.
I would say there are times when I would not say that Joey was the greatest Ramone, but in the very end, you always kind of got to go back to that because that is who you think of when you think of Ramones.
Yeah, like that's, you know, we've said that about, you know, all, you know, especially the big three, but I mean, imagery wise, you know, who do you think about, who do you look at immediately because of his appearance? Not even like his face or anything like that, but like his height, you know, stands out. Again, you know, that voice, you know, set them apart from every other band, and, like, you know, it like draws you in, you know, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
you know, like, this is a train wreck, and then eventually you're like, oh shit, you know, it's actually pretty fucking good. You know, what's going on? I'm tapping my foot now, I'm singing along, I'm punching the guy beside me, and even though I'm singing a song about my girlfriend, you know, so it's like, you know, what's going on here?
Not to mention, as far as people say the Ramones, all their albums sound the same, I fucking beg to differ. Joey had one of the most, like, striking vocal evolutions that you could have. I mean, he started out with the sweet and tender voice and ended up snarling at people in the end. You know, that's like a very big evolution for Joey. So it's like, you know, I think there's just, and you know, can you imagine anybody else in there? I can imagine another guitar player. It's real hard, but I can imagine another guitar player in the Ramones if it had to happen. I could never, ever imagine another singer in the Ramones.
Yeah,
completely unique voice. Like Johnny said, when Joey dies, it's over. There's no more band. He had extreme OCD. We should cover that. So he had to walk up and down stairs 100 times before leaving the hotel, tap, you know, all the items in the room a certain number of times.
We found out recently he had a doorknob thing too, right?
Yeah.
And Johnny was just disgusted by this, and, you know, their road manager Monty had to just, like, basically babysit him. The most striking thing actually about Joey is just the whole story about Johnny stealing his girlfriend and then marrying her, and then them just having to be business partners for, like, the next 20 years and just hating each other but still staying together.
I always wondered, you know, like, I mean, the Ramones, it was like a horrible schedule. It was nonstop, and Joey has struggled so much. And I always wonder, you know, what was it that kept him in there? Because many of us would have said, yo, well, fuck you, Johnny. Guess what? The Ramones are done, and that also means your career is nowhere. Because honestly, Johnny wasn't really this versatile guitarist that's going to go join, you know, whatever. He's not going to go play second guitar for any other punk band because he only plays Ramones guitar. So what was it, you know, you got to wonder, that kept Joey going? And was it just the love of creation and music? Because he could have kept doing that, you know? I mean, I've always wondered, because it's a mystery. Why did he not just fucking give it up then? all these members of this band were in a codependent relationship with one another, and when they tried to leave, they just couldn't leave. Even Dee Dee kept coming back. Even Tommy kept coming back. You know, it's like, it's a weird, like, abusive, codependent band. But, yeah, I mean, dude, imagine how soul-crushing that is, because then fucking Linda Ramone's coming on every goddamn tour now or whatever. You know, maybe she didn't, but, you know, what are you doing tonight, Joey? Well, I'm jacking off and crying in my room, and then I'm going to walk up the stairs 500 times. What are you doing? Fucking your ex-girlfriend, and we're going out for some chicken vindaloo. What a hard life, but he stuck with it, you know?
Right, and the dark answer to the riddle is Joey needs Johnny. The dark truth he has to face is he needs this guy.
Holy shit! Think about that, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So leave it on a positive note, though. Joey is one of the greatest singers of all time, a completely irreplaceable voice, and a great songwriter too. A lot of their great songs he wrote.
True.
Yeah.
No matter what they say, it's still Crystal Lake to me. Teenage takeover, they're trying to pull off things you can't make over. Bury all the bodies and pick up the towels. There's still a couple under that they haven't found now. You can call it Camp Forest Green, Camp Blood or something in between. But that doesn't erase the history. Calling Glenn dancing, well, it ain't no mystery. Not to me. It's still Crystal Lake, no matter what they call it. It's still Crystal Lake, no matter what they call it. Crystal Lake, no matter what they call it. It's still Crystal Lake, no matter what they call it in part 6.
Okay, well, now we got through the list, so we can ask the Jasons all the tough questions that everyone wants to know. You guys take a lot of business influence from Kiss. We talked about Kiss last time, but you guys sound like the Ramones. And we kind of discussed that the Ramones are often accused of not progressing and evolving. It's kind of a lie. They definitely did progress and go in different directions over time. But also a lot of people accuse the Jasons of not progressing. So how do you guys respond to that? And how do you see yourselves progressing musically?
I mean, listen to the music, really. If you look at our very first album, man, like V wrote that entire album. B does most of the writing. That's not a secret. But, I mean, the very first album, it's like, I want to rip off the Ramones as much as possible.
Yeah.
You know, the first album is 100% Ramones core to the T. Then, you know, Stalking / Summer, we dial it back some, but it's still as Ramones core as physically possible. Get Fucked, we kind of started leering away from it, man. We started started putting other styles of punk in there, having a little bit more fun with it, but still keeping with the Ramones core idea. And then, you know, Blood in the Streets, I feel like most of it I wouldn't even consider, you know, straightforward Ramones core. You know, it's very, in my head, you know, like, there's punk, there's hard rock, and then there's like metal influences in there as too. So like, especially like if someone could sit there and say that they heard our first album and they heard our last album and they sound alike, that person's tone deaf.
I think too, you know, like, so one way of like, and I do fancy us 3D. I fancy the Jasons as being a band that helped evolve the Ramones core scene. And maybe people out there will say that is me putting too much on our band, right? But I'm going to say this. It's like, if you're going to change the sound, like if we want to play Ramones core, yes, but we want to evolve it a little bit, you don't, it's like a dick. You don't take a blunt force just straight across dick and stick it in somebody, right? Because God created the easy start tip. If you look down at your penis, it's got this tip on it that's easy start, right? So our first record was the tip, and then we put it in a little bit more, and then the girth starts to show. But if you hit somebody in the face with this, very different, progressive, non-Ramones core record with tiny Ramones core influences, the scene doesn't want it. So you hit them with a little Ramones core. Hey, look, we've proven ourselves. Now we're going to change it. Before they know it, they've got something that's a little bit evolved. Best example, the Lillingtons. Everybody knows the Lillingtons started out as a Ramones core band. Then they switched it up to this Cold War paranoia. And guess what? Every band fucking rips that off now. But the Lillingtons started out by saying, here we're going to prove we can do Ramones core. Easy start tip. Here's the shaft. And it's great. So you can't just, to evolve the scene, you gotta play by their rules for a little bit and then move it forward. And maybe our contribution is just that, people can see a band dressed in leather and hockey masks and say, yeah, that's still Ramones core, whatever. Or maybe you can have a fucking heavy metal references in your song, whatever. But I do think, at least to some point, if you're going to make your mark on it, you can't just rip it off.
So I was going to ask you guys, so what is next for you guys, though?
Yeah. So what's next up for us is we're still debating that tour. Like, if especially, V and myself, playing shows is really part of our livelihood. And so, we really want to get back out there, but we don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but we want to play. And so, if the states feel that it's safe, and a lot of promoters have reached out to us saying hey, things are still go, but there's been a lot of large gatherings recently that may change that here soon. We don't know, so we got to watch the news, pay attention to what regulations are hitting states and everything.
You guys also released new quarantine sweatpants, which look amazing.
Yeah, we got some left. We got a bunch of new stuff getting ready to hit the merch store pretty soon. So sweatpants, patches, that striper design on a patch, enamel pins, sticker packs, all that kind of shit. Trying to keep our fucking image out there and alive in people's fucking hearts and minds while we're not in their fucking local venues or whatever. So
as far as we know, our split with the Queers is still set to release in 2028. I talked to Joe the other day. He said he's pushing it forward. I'm not sure if we're allowed to announce what label has agreed to take it yet, so we'll hold off on that. But
I think it might be Never Gonna Happen Records.
Yeah. they're very new, but it's allegedly it's on a label now, so that'll be pretty cool. Exciting time for us.
We got a split with the Black Russians coming out. We got a 7-inch that is basically done that we're gonna put out here at some point.
Oh, that one's gonna be real cool. That's we're going back to the old school vinyl single releases.
Fuck yeah!
Except for it's not how singles used to have an A side and a B side, but they called it a single for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do. One song's a Joey song, the next song is a Dee song, but V in 3D instead, so it has a cool contrast.
Yep.
If I can nail the artwork properly, that's gonna be badass. Do you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah. About it? It's called the Jarvis House Split. So I wrote a song called Murder at the Jarvis House. 3D wrote a song called Tommy's Mom about Tommy Jarvis's mom, who is a MILF. And so it's just a concept record based around the Jarvis house and that little incident that happened there. And it should be cool, man. We wanted to do something, that because for us it was always we wanted vinyl, and we wanted to do something that was you got to get the vinyl to get this fucking thing. Here it is. You need this vinyl, And a lot of record labels still do that, but we don't really traditionally work with too many record labels. So we've had this plan forever, and we recorded it. It's part of the same sessions that we recorded Blood in the Streets. So it's that level of quality, which is the best quality we ever did. And I'm pumped about both songs because they don't have the same vibe. Neither one has the same vibe as Blood in the Streets, and I think that's going to make this record sort of have its own little special feel,
Well, I think both the songs are really good. I think fans of the band will really appreciate the songs themselves. They're the 3D song is a very 3D song, and the V song is a very V song, but they're both fun. You can laugh at them. You can sing along to them. They both got great choruses, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be real cool.
And as much as we have strayed away from writing too many songs about Jason, we still had a good measure. We keep trying to push that a little bit further. A few less about Jason on each record, but for people that really like that, this 7-inch is all about that fucking universe, so we don't leave all the fucking diehard Jason fans out. You got, real fucking deep dive shit.
Awesome. Oh, well, thanks so much for coming to speak to me.
Yeah, man, we have a good time every time.
Well, thank you. And, we'll do this again sometime soon.
Hell yeah.
Fun.